Hi everyone, this is Kelly from The Truth in Story, and I am just here making a little video for Mother Stars, which is Patrick from In the 78 Stars. His mother is such a sweetheart. I've got fingerprints all over it. She's such a sweetheart, and I was so excited when she started posting things on Lenormand and on Instagram and things. It was really sweet to see her kind of engaging. And she had a question on the Facebook group. She was just kind of talking about scrying, and it was funny that she had asked it. I don't know, it was yesterday, I think, or the next day, or the day before, perhaps. I think. But it was funny because the very night before she asked it, I had had a really neat experience with scrying. And so I did say that I would put something up about this. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and do that. So this is a clear crystal ball. This is that Patrick sent me when I ordered the Animal Spirits Oracle. And I have to say I haven't had yet a whole lot of luck with this, although I haven't done a lot of work with it yet. I did when I first got it, and I was kind of confused on what to do with it because, you know, for my very sometimes analytical brain, all I could see was reflections of my fingers or reflections of, you know, if I didn't have it on something black, you know, just different things. And so it wasn't quite, I wasn't quite sinking into what I would see out of it. And there's a couple little tiny bubbles that I can see, but I just wasn't, I wasn't quite sinking into it. Although, like I said, I hadn't really spent a lot of time working with it. I wasn't entirely sure how to get started with it. Because I haven't had a real solid, I've done a little bit with like my labradorite and things, and I've had some, you know, I've had some things come up, but nothing, you know, I wasn't completely clicking like, bam, okay, that's what it is. I'm going to zoom in closely. This is Edgar here. Now, so what I've come to realize, at least for myself, and I know it's going to be kind of hard because you're still going to see a light here. I've got it down as minimized as I can, but I don't know how else to really fix that. So this is Edgar, and Edgar is, so this is a clear, not a clear quartz. This is a reconstituted quartz. And I know I've had some great viewers explain, obviously it's all glass in a sense, but this, the process that this particular, you can get glass ones that are handmade, or it's all, you know, it's depending on how you see things. Some people prefer, say that it doesn't matter what it is. It can be just a glass one. This one is quartz, clear quartz that has been broke down and reconstituted into a crystal ball, taking like all the occlusions and things like that out of it. From what I have read, the research I've done, it doesn't really matter what you're using as your conduit, as sort of your object. However, there's something to be said for having all these inclusions in here. So I'm just going to share with you this experience because it was quite powerful to me. It wasn't last night, so it was a couple nights ago. I was having kind of a down night. So I was you know, just having one of those nights. And I've been, you know, just kind of mulling over, you know, I've got the website kind of redone, and where am I going to go from here? And am I moving things in the right direction? And just kind of, doing, I guess, some reevaluation and making sure things were going along the way that I needed to go. And was I doing things right? And these kinds of, you know, those kinds of things that can happen when you're building a business and when you're, you know, doing these kinds of things, every once in a while, I think you just kind of need to check in and make sure you're going in the direction that you want to be going in. And so I wasn't like, okay, I'm going to have a scrying a scrying session, but I just picked up, because he's always sitting right here. I was sitting at my table, and I picked Edgar up, which is a clear quartz skull, but you can see it has tons, I don't know if you can see, I'm hoping. He has tons of inclusions and some wonderful orange things going back here. This gorgeous, I mean, he's just gorgeous. There's just no other way around it. He's just absolutely beautiful. Fairy Freak sent him to me, and I just, yeah, he's fantastic. So anyways, I picked him up, and I just started kind of, you know, I was pretty low key. I wasn't geared up. I was pretty low key. It was later at night. I kind of just went into meditative breathing. I meditated for years and such, so it's not too hard for me, I guess, to kind of sink into that, just kind of relax into that kind of breath state. And so I did that, and I just kind of started, you know, moving it around, and all of a sudden I could feel sort of a little bit of a shift from just kind of looking. I was just kind of looking at the inclusions, kind of moving things around, and I could feel a little bit of a shift. Excuse me, sorry, big yawn. It's actually quite late. I just felt like talking about this. So anyways, I just started, you know, you can just feel that shift. I don't know if you've ever meditated. You can kind of feel when you shift gears. And so I kind of felt that shift, and the inclusions that were on the most inner mark, you know, there's some on the very edge, but some that were really in there, they just kind of started to shift, you know, with a little bit of turning. They kind of started shifting like clouds. And, you know, so just like watching clouds, like, you know, when you just kind of move it, it shifts the shape, and it's kind of became like cloud watching. And, first I saw like a frog form and then kind of move away, which frogs to me are kind of transformative energies, kind of moving from one element into another element, going from water to being able to be in the air, up and breathing and things like that. So that was interesting. And then I started to really think, you know, about to try to think, okay, I feel like I was moving into that kind of zone, and so I kind of was asking that, kind of thinking about that question of moving forward, and was, you know, was I going forward in the way in which I needed to be going in, and, you know, should I be doing things differently, this kind of thing, stuff, all the things that were on my mind at the moment. And all of a sudden, a wolf's head kind of formed. And it was pretty powerful, and it was very clear. In fact, I can still kind of find it, although it's not as clear as when I was in that mode. Yeah, no, I mean, I know kind of where it was, but it kind of formed in the inclusions, and it was really beautiful. It was kind of a side profile, and I thought, oh, that's interesting, right? Because that's one of my totem animals with the raven, and so I was like, okay, so, you know, I just was kind of like, well, so, you know, how do I do this the best, you know, the best way? Like, what is the best way to move forward? And no kidding, the wolf's head just kind of completely turned, and looked, you know, kind of dead, you know, straight on. It was quite beautiful. It was very clear. You could see this very gentle but firm, kind of mothery wolf kind of a vibe to the look through, or the look, and just kind of looked at me, and I just got that sense in my head, sort of a internal message of just, you know, just be you, just do you. That was the message. It was very clear. Like I said, the head just kind of shifted, looked straight at me, and it was just like, just do you. And I thought that was really cool. It was a really neat experience, again, because I don't really have a lot of experience with scrying, although for me, all of it's very similar just in terms of, pendulum use, even tarot cards, all of it is simply short, in my opinion. From my perspective, all of that is just tools to shortcut us into a space in which we can hear. Whatever that may be to you. That may be, your guides, that may be your sense of the divine, that may be your inner voice. That may be, for me, my inner voice. That may be tapping into the collective unconscious, tapping into totem animal spirit, that kind of thing, whatever that may be. What all of the tools that we use and the things that we surround ourselves with and that we use, they're tools to kind of shortcut us in, right? Get us into the space in which we can hear what we already know most of the time. I mean, I know the message of, to just be myself and to just do what I do authentically. And then, that's always going to be my best. I mean, that's nothing that I don't know, but there is, when you hear it from a tarot reader, some of you, if you get a reading, they're probably 9 times out of the 10, they are telling you something that you already know. But there is something about the act of getting a reading and having somebody read for you and having them voice that and tap into that and voice that can be very, it can be affirming what we already know, and sometimes kind of cutting through layers so that we're really hearing it better. And the same thing when you're doing a reading for yourself with cards or anything like that. Sometimes, or most of the time, I think that we know what the cards have to tell us. But it helps us cut through chatter. It helps us cut through the bullshit sometimes. It helps us cut through whatever may be clouding our the way that we think through things and the way that we are processing things. It kind of cuts through that, shorthands us into a space where we can really get the message very clearly. And so that's how that's kind of how I approach anything to do with divination. It's about knowing a language, and it's a very visual language, right? I mean, tarot cards, while they have, I can read, a tarot card, a deck that would just have the names of the cards on it because I know the traditional meanings, I understand the numerology behind it and that kind of thing. It's still a very visual skill, even in something like Marseille, when we're looking at the pip cards and we're moving, say, on a number 7, when we're moving from, the groupings of 4 to the groupings of 3, even though the number 7 itself has numerological value without any of that visual, there is something also to be found in the visual movement between 4 into 3 that says something to me. It's that kind of breaking out their movement that says something to me. When you do something like, because I have these right here, and because you all know I'm obsessed, when you do something like geomancy, it's visual, even though these are just dots on a stick or on a piece of paper. This visual going downward of the energy, a down pouring energy, that visually says something, even though we may need to memorize meanings. Or this, that idea of energy going upward, right? That visually, on top of any traditional meanings that might be there, that visualization of this figure means something. It also speaks, as well as, say, I Ching. When you're looking at the hexagrams or the trigrams, you can see visual representations in those as well. And so I think that the language of divination and the language of all these different things that we explore are very visual in nature. And so that is an old language, right? The language of visualized tapping into the visual things and the archetype of visual symbols, the symbology, I guess, of that is so ancient. I mean, we've got people, you know, in the cave times making drawings on the walls that are taking symbols that they're repeating, you know, the repeated hands. You have even the repeated, you know, animals or and hieroglyphics, and you know, just everything that you can think of when you go back to sort of ancient, when you go to Ogums, or I know those are Ohms, but I always think of them as Ogums. You go to Ogums, or you go to, you know, runes and things like that. You know, this is an ancient understanding that visual things can be shortcuts and triggers into deeper knowledge. And so, you know, that's you know, what my experience in scrying is in getting in that place in which I am not paying attention to the physical structure so much, and kind of moving into the landscape where a simple image that had some form, some part of it spoke of being a wolf, that was able to pop out and form stronger, and because that means something to me. That visual touchstone taps into that language, and really, again, I think that's what all of these different things that we do with these different tools are kind of tapping into that. So, and giving us a message that we need to hear right then and there, which is what I got from that little scrying session. So, I really guess I don't have any other point to this other than that. I mean, I just thought that was fascinating. I thought it was interesting. I thought the message was very poignant and very to the point, because that's all we can really do, right? We can all we can really do is do ourselves our most authentically, and that's going to resonate both with other people, but most importantly, that is going to be us. Living our most authentic, and so in our own lives, irregardless of what other people get out of it in our own lives, that's simply going to, you know, we're going to be living in a place that is fulfilling and is inspiring to ourselves, and then anything I think that comes from that, other than, you know, outside of our own fulfillment in living and expressing ourselves authentically, is just going to be bonus, right? It's just going to be bonuses. So, so Mother Wolf here, taking residence in Edgar's head, I think had an excellent message. And so for those of you, yeah, I've really rambled. It's late and probably not a timing which to make videos, but I just felt like a little bit of a ramble. And I would say for those of you who are people who have tried scrying, if you're having trouble, I think, with a clear ball, you may want to try something that does have inclusions. I mean, even Big Ben here, I mean, he's got wonderful inclusions there. And so I think a lot of it is very similar to meditation skills, just in the fact that I never approached the form of meditation that I did. I never approached meditation as needing to clear my brain, trying to go for utter silence in my mind. I just know myself that wasn't going to work, that wasn't going to happen. But what it was learning to breathe correctly and to zone down enough that you kind of are floating a little bit. And so when a thought comes in, you just, the way that I was taught to meditate, when a thought comes in, you simply label it and then kind of push it off. Like it's as if you were, I think of the moon card in the Roots of Asia, where her face is simply floating on the top of the water. Well, she's floating under the water. Her face is the only thing out of the water. And so I think about you know, if you think about that as yourself, and all around you you're in this water, and of course there's thoughts in the water because our brains are human and thoughts come in our brain. But instead of like freaking out when a thought comes into your brain when you're meditating, you just kind of, you know, label it as thought and then let it drift off away. And then the next thought comes into your mind and you label it as thought and you kind of push that away. You know, you don't allow the thoughts to be stressful. You're just letting things wash in and wash out. Label it, push it off, label it and push it off. Now, eventually you get less chatter as you get more comfortable with it. You start to zone down into that mode where you get a lot less chatter, or more interesting chatter sometimes, depending on what you're doing. You know, the purpose of kind of getting into that meditative state might be. But so you definitely want to kind of get yourself, like, get your breathing, you know, start to breathe slowly, breathe always, you breathe through your stomach. Like when you take a breath in meditation, your stomach should be going outward. Like when we take breaths, a lot of times we suck our stomach in, and really when you take a breath, your stomach should be going out. And then when you breathe out, your stomach should be going in because you're pushing that air out. But if you kind of focus on your breathing for a little while and kind of relax your body, you should be in a comfortable position. You should be in a relaxed, you know, you should just be able to relax your body and muscles. You obviously, if you're scrying, you don't necessarily want to close your eyes, but you certainly want to relax your eyes until they're just, you know, kind of open, but comfortably open, and they're almost closed. You know, you might look half asleep if somebody else was looking at you, so that everything's just kind of relaxed and it gets fuzzy around the edges. You know, you kind of just want to get into that comfortable, and that by itself might take some practice and some time. And, you know, for me then, I just started, and so that, I can shorthand into that because I've done it a lot. But then it was just, you know, kind of being in that state, thinking about what it is that I, you know, was thinking about. So if you had a question, or, you know, just like as you approach a tarot reading, and then simply kind of turning things and moving things and seeing what pops to the surface and what triggers, you know, a visual to you, or something that pops out and you think, okay, you know, you might see, like right now, you know, if I'm turning Ben around and looking inside, you know, I might see what looks to be a mountain range, depending on the question, and start thinking about endurance and about the strength that comes from enduring things. And, you know, a interesting fact, you know, when you flip this upside down, you almost get that mountain range upside down, and yet the mountains, you know, the mountains are enduring. You might see mountains, depending on what your question might be, or there you have this little, you know, flick. Like I just had a flash of light because there's obviously some kind of a shiny substance in here, and so there's a flicker. A beautiful flicker of light here, right here, when I'm looking at it, that looks to be like a flower. Especially it looks, because I'm working with watercolor, so it kind of looks like a watercolor flower that's kind of growing out and coming out of the inclusions. And so I think about growth, and I think about, you know, what does that mean to me, this fresh flower, and maybe taking care of. And actually, when I follow that pattern, I can see a larger growth coming up here, almost like the trunk of a tree with a vine on it. And so again, I get that sense of endurance, like an old oak tree with a vine that's growing on it, but that we need to nurture. You know, we have this big tree trunk here, and here we have this small flower, and we think about that idea of needing to nurture those small creative bits in ourselves. And the way that, you know, when I started to work with the watercolors for the first time, and I realized I really hadn't been nurturing that creative energy, that fire energy in myself. I've been pouring a lot of that into my work, which is a good thing, but I was missing something. And in fact, I did my birth chart, or I just kind of pulled it up. I didn't, you know, go through and do everything, but I just looked at my birth chart, which I really haven't paid a lot of attention to, and realized that there was a lot more fire in my chart that I realized, and a lot more ways in which energetically creative things like painting, and for me writing, playing the guitar, those kinds of things really do feed me and recharge my energy. And I wasn't giving those things. I hadn't been playing my guitar as much. I certainly hadn't been painting. But I wasn't really writing creatively, so I really wasn't feeding myself the way that my energy is most easily recharged. Intellectually, I get recharged as well, but I was kind of neglecting a whole chunk. So yeah, so I see that sense of, we do have this ancient tree that's here, but we've got this little tiny beautiful, and even here there's this beautiful little glints of the small plants, and those need tending, and those need feeding, because those are going to grow strong. And even if I don't, like these tiny little flowers that I can now see, almost like a field of flowers that are around this beautiful oak tree, even those, they're not going to be as long-lived as this particular oak tree here. They're flashes of color and flashes of light. It was really what I'm seeing in this, because I'm not really seeing color, but I'm seeing flashes of light, of these pinpricks of flowers. And there's beauty in that, and there's something to be worth exploring and enjoying, as well as that sort of big oak tree longevity and things here. We need those flashes of color and life that little flowers bring, and stopping. Because that's one thing I noticed today when I was out and about buying some paints so that I could continue learning to paint. And I noticed that for the first time in a while, I was seeing the sky, as a wash of color, and the different colors in the sky, and the different colors in trees. Because whenever I was, consciously doing a lot of photography, I used to always do pictures of the day and things like that for years. Because one of the reasons that I always like that is because it forces you to, it doesn't force you, it puts you into a space in which you are really seeing, versus just kind of running through your errands and not really seeing what's around you. You start to see everything through the lens of a camera, or in this case, I was seeing everything in the lens of color, because I was studying, I'm studying color and mixing of colors, and what mixing this color and this color makes, and how a brush stroke across a very simple brush stroke gives that energy feel of a wash, even though all it is one wash of color, and it gives a feel of a field. And how color and light and shadow can evoke those kinds of things. And so because I'm studying that, going out a simple errand, I'm seeing that color everywhere. And so I think that's something that I was missing, because I haven't been doing those kinds of things. And so this reminds me of that we need to feed those things. So that's kind of what you would do, is you just kind of start to play with it. I do think that the inclusions, and I know this has been more of a ramble than an actual tutorial or anything like that, but I do think that if you're struggling with this clear ball of a clear crystal, you might want to start with something that has some inclusions in it. Now, it doesn't have to be very big. Again, I was using this one because he was sitting on here. This one worked just as well. I mean, this is still a nice sized chunk, but clear quartz isn't too hard to find, so that's not too hard of a piece to do. I have even this guy here, which Miss Romantic sent me. And so, there's a bunch of inclusions, almost like snow at the bottom of this, and cracks, and smaller, more ghostly ones here. But then when you turn it to the side where you can kind of see through to where this is, there's just all kinds of things on the surface there. So even something like this, my clear quartz pendulum has some amazing inclusions in it. And so, you can look at even something as small as this. So I don't think that it takes, obviously this is a fantastic guy for me to work with, but I don't think it takes anything this big. I think that these littler pieces you can do very simple. In fact, many of the videos I had seen about scrying were quite small, clear crystal spheres. They weren't really all that large. And so I would say that, again, if you're having trouble with the clear, find something with inclusions in it, or like labradorite, where you can just really, my bigger pieces are over there, but you know, where something like labradorite, where you can really fall into the lights and the flashes of light. I don't have a lot of direct light on here right now because I was trying to keep it from blinding, being able to see Edgar, but there's so much in labradorite, there's so much depth, and there's again that whole sort of aurora borealis kind of northern lights feel, where you can, you know, see the same sort of thing with it, but with like clouds. And I have done a little bit with, like right there, eagle's, beautiful eagle's head just popped up. And so the idea for me, that just brings, because what we were just talking about with the flowers, that idea, you know, eagles for me are all about getting up high so that you can see, so that you can really see, but not just seeing a bigger picture, but you can also see details. They're such far-sighted. I feel like that they're so far up there, and yet they can see a mouse and like swoop down and get a mouse. So it's like that getting up and out of yourself in order to really see clearly. So yeah, so it doesn't take, I think, a lot, and I would say work with something that just has something to work with there until you can, I think, get real comfortable getting into that mode, and then maybe trying a clear ball. But I can't talk to that because I haven't spent any time with that. So there you have it. That's just a little kind of rambly chit chat. Talking about various things, as well as a little bit of scrying. So I hope that this finds you all well, and that you all have a absolutely wonderful day or night, depending on what time you're watching this.